Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting of the Harrisonville Board of Aldermen to order. If you would please stand and recite the pledge with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Alderman Davidson.
Present.
Alderman Franklin.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Present.
Alderman Zering.
Present.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Present.
Alderman Reese.
Present.
Alderman Mills.
Present.
Alderman Milner is excused. Mayor Bowman.
Present. Thank you. We do have a quorum. We like looking out and having a full audience. Thank you all for coming this evening. We've got some things we want to celebrate. I'm going to call Chief Sullivan up to the front of the room. And we've got a couple of firefighters that we're going to pin the badges on tonight. So please.
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to add two more young firefighters to our ranks tonight. Morgan Driggs and Jordan Rice are two of his members.
Please right hand, repeat after me. I state your name. Upon my oath, swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of the state of Missouri, and will comply with the ordinances of the city of Harrisonville, and I will discharge the duties of firefighter faithfully and impartially, and to the best of my skill and ability. Congratulations.
Will you introduce who's going to pin these new firefighters for us?
Sure will. Don Driggs will be pinning Morgan's dad.
Mr. Driggs, hello. I'm Mayor Bowman. Welcome to Harrisonville. What an honor. Please, help yourself. Say anything? She said, please don't stab me. I think some people want to take pictures, so if you want to go right ahead.
Nope, you're good. And Tom Rice will be pinning Jordan.
And you can say anything to him you want to. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing your son with us. Congratulations.
Both these firefighters have already proved themselves time and time again on EMS calls and at fires and at our fire the other night. So they did excellent. They come well recommended, and we look forward to having you guys for a really long time.
Well, welcome to Harrisonville. We're honored to have you with us. You know, we feel like this is a great city and a great fire department, and we know that you will have a critical role to play, and we want you to know that we welcome you. It will be because of you that we'll be a safer, stronger, better community. So welcome to Harrisonville, and welcome to Harrisonville Fire Department. Give them a round of applause. And I think your crew wants to come in. Come on in, fire crew, for more pictures. At this time, I'm going to call Chief Hofer to the podium. He has a new officer just sworn in this morning that he'd like to introduce to the board and to the audience.
I guess we should have done this before the fire, so we had the crowd. But happy to announce our new family member today. Kyle Truelove comes to us from Peculiar Police Department. He's spent law enforcement. He's been in law enforcement since 2013, so he's got some experience. Been an investigator, so we're super excited to put him to work. And we'll be swearing in another one next Monday, and that will leave just one position. So we're working towards getting down. Not too long ago, we were down 7, so we're down to just one here. So, would you like to say anything? I know the mayor's going to ask you. You want to?
That's right.
I'm super excited to be here.
Why don't you step up to the microphone so we have one alderman attending remotely, and that way he can hear you.
Just really excited to be here. Been looking forward to it for a little bit, so look forward to seeing everybody, I guess.
Well, I will stand and applaud you, as will this board. We appreciate your service. Welcome to Harrisonville.
Yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You bet. Okay, thank you, board. Thank you, staff. Moving on, we have public participation. We have an agenda request that we received from Scott Emmons. Scott, I'll invite you to come to the podium. Scott, I want to just remind you of the process. You have 3 minutes to speak to the board. If you need to go beyond 3 minutes, the board will make a decision on whether or not to allow you additional time. So if you'd start by naming your name and your residence, please.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Into the microphone for us. Thank you, sir.
Let's try that. Can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
Can Alderman Mills hear me?
He's shaking his head yes.
Sweet. Got to have that guy. He's on my side. Okay, so my residence, my address, 201 West Washington Street, H. And before I get started, kudos to the new recruits on both sides there.
Sure.
Congratulations. Good to see you. I have a brief statement to make. It's well under 3 minutes. And it regards the financial grants program that was, looks like resurrected in the July 20th work session and approved August 1st city council meeting. So because of, some of you know me,
and some of you probably don't. Some of you don't know me with a beard. And some of you say, wow, that's a transformation. So I apologize for that if it's caught some of you off guard, but we'll just let it work itself out. But anyway, I'm going to give you my speech, and it's in regards to the homeowners side of things about the financial grants program. So if you don't have any other questions, let me begin.
Scott,
Let you guys get going.
can you get a little closer to your,
Sure.
just kind of scoot it up a little there?
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. When I'm yelling at my house, it hears me quite clearly, so people I have to work with. Greetings, council members and Mayor Bowman. It's nice to stand here before you with the opportunity to allow my voice to be heard again. My appreciation and thanks for this time. I'm here tonight because I consider the proposed financial grants program to assist private homeowner residents in their need or ambition to improve the structural or aesthetic quality of their personal home here in Harrisonville, to functionalize the most important consideration of private property upkeep, considerate to the qualities and temperament of the community, to be one of voluntary compliance. It is what any community and urban metropolis should make paramount in their codes enforcement prerogative. Attracting and gaining voluntary compliance creates the greater good of the whole, with minimum cost garnishing the greatest reward. Voluntary compliance is so important because it immediately congregates the synthesis of our democratic spirit to the power of two fundamental rights in every part of our land: the right to legally vote for fair representation and our rights assumed to us as legally binding property owners. Voluntary compliance affords a citizen's will to be inclusive, or our Constitution stands ready to support those differences to such when paths remain separated toward a common goal. Our Constitution guarantees the 5th and 14th Amendments shall guarantee the property owner the proper attempt at remedy through the art of due process within our court system. However, to discern a more agreeable nuance, there is no better and easier functional entity of this layered mural of governments to exert this equanimity for compromise than the most personal layer of governance at the municipal form.
Mr. Emmons, pardon me, sir. Your initial 3 minutes have concluded.
Oh.
So at this point, I'd like the board, if you want him to have another 3 minutes, please raise your hand. All right, you have additional 3 minutes.
Thank you. So, can you hear me all? Okay, cool. So, I'll begin at the first word of that first paragraph, that second paragraph. However, to discern a more agreeable nuance, there is no better and easier functional entity of this layered mural of governments to exert this equanimity for compromise than the most personal layer of governance as the municipal form for which I am a supportive constituent and property owner speaking here before you all. So reading through the comments, accenting the key concerns, I noticed some that resonated toward the burden side of dubious intent, and this seemed directed at the homeowner. I believe, because of my personal experience these last 3 years, that the opposite burden is more plausible than perhaps is felt or thought. When small city governments create legislative enforcement, what happens is the enforcement proceeds forward without the necessary checks and balances to create the effective feedback mechanism to qualify outcomes from each effort. It seems too much for any unit of a finite resource to clearly comprehend, and thus practices and results, good and bad, go unserviced, unchecked, and eventually lost until the burden becomes the storm. I believe a community group to oversee and coordinate checks and balances as a corrective mechanism for appropriate feedback is a most important effort. In my own personal home improvement projects, my personal experience has been a multitude of burdens that I should very much like to see corrected for the next series of Harrisonville DIYers and their personal dwelling upgrade journey. Standing in the courtroom for the 6th time, soon to be the 7th.
Mr. Emmons, I'm going to ask you to stay on topic about the beautification program, and you're not to discuss any of your codes enforcement issues during this time.
Okay, thank you. My neighbors, a very young family needing a program like this, and those much older sharing the same financial situation, are looking toward this new program. But having been a part of the Washington Street Enclave and knowing all the details of my personal burdens as a DIYer at 201, some neighbors feel my unprecedented property owner burdens are reasons for caution before entering into a grand thesis regarding their private property enhancement. I remember not long ago when our voices were heard distinctly by a new leadership. I know my voice supported what I felt to be right and just remedy to allow fair representation despite the intent to harbor away such opportunity. I remember making sure that my voice gave support to the democratic means of our municipal governments to be fully representative and material to all of its constituents. I believe tonight I am here again to have my voice heard and to ask for directness and transparency for the appropriate checks and balances to the homeowners' rights process, whether as a benevolent effort embodying good faith doctrine or as a critical confrontation for corrective processing. I have a personal engagement to support the obligation toward betterment.
Thank you, sir. Your second 3 minutes have concluded.
Okay, I'm on my last sentence, if I may.
All right.
I have a personal engagement to support the obligation toward betterment and to be supportive for those that follow my path. Thank you again, City Council members and Mayor Bowman, for giving me this opportunity to offer my voice to the success of the proposed private property financial grants program.
Thank you, Mr. Emmons.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes. I would ask you at this time to please silence your cell phones and the audio on your laptops if you have not already done so. First item is the approval of the minutes of the work session of August the 10th. They were available to you in your packet. Are there any corrections or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion from Alderman Zaring with a second from Alderman Dorhoff. All in favor of the approval of the minutes of the work session of August 10th, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Those minutes stand approved as printed. The minutes of the regular meeting, August 15th. Again, they were available to you in your packet. If there are no corrections or deletions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Franklin with a second from Alderman Turner. All in favor of the approval of those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Alderman Mills? I think he's on mute.
It's showing you muted. Oh, there you go.
I'm just looking for.
I wasn't present that night, but I assume they're correct.
Okay, you're welcome to abstain if you wish.
So I'll abstain on this one.
Okay, thank you. Those minutes stand approved then as printed with one abstention. The minutes of the work session August 15th were also in your packet. If there's no corrections, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion from Alderman Turner with a second from Alderman Franklin. All in favor of the approval of those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
One abstention.
And one abstention. Thank you. Those minutes stand approved with one abstention from Alderman Mills. Moving on to the agenda items, Council Bill 59.
A resolution of the Board of Aldermen authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Harrisonville Cass R9 School District for a school resource officer and establishing an effective date.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Before you tonight is the annual School Resource Officer Agreement. It's a renewal for the school year 2022 to 2023. There haven't been any contractual changes to the agreement other than the fee that we charge, which is which is a $4.10 increase over last year, and that's due to the increase that the staff got in January. So we're asking that the school district reimburse the city at the rate for Officer Ramsey and Officer King for in the middle school. So that's their wages and benefits. It's very similar to years past. It's just showing the increase for the increase that the staff saw in January. We are recommending approval. It has gone before the school board, has been approved and signed off by them. Entertain any questions.
Any questions for the chief about the SRO program or the contract? Seeing no questions, no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion for approval. Second.
Have a motion from Alderman Davidson with a second from Alderman Dorhoff. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Zaring,
Aye.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Franklin,
Aye.
Alderman Mills,
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Council Bill 59 is approved and becomes Resolution 2022-34. Council Bill 60.
A resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville to approve the special event request from the Harrisonville Area Chamber of Commerce to hold the 2022 Log Cabin Festival.
Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is the annual Log Cabin Festival event permit. It is very similar to many events they've had in the past. I noted a couple changes in my memo. I'm pretty good with recommending and approving the majority of it. However, I wanted to discuss in more detail the request under number 14, which is the use of ATVs, razors, and gators. I don't have too much heartache if it's just the chamber and a couple chamber members using it to move equipment. But in years past, there's been razors up and down and around town, the square area, especially the morning of the parade. I know I saw them up and down Pearl Street. An ATV to me is something that you straddle, and I don't think we should allow ATVs. But if they want to get a slow-moving gator to move equipment, I know they've got a reenactment at the bottom of the hill that they're wanting to move equipment, and also for the parade. I don't have too much of a problem if it's just a couple vehicles with, as I said, chamber members. But I really was going to let you guys decide on that one. I'm always the bad guy when it comes to razors and ATVs and all around town, and because they aren't licensable, we don't allow them in the city of Harrisonville. So outside of that, I think everything is included in my memo. Entertain any questions.
Alderman Zaring.
Yeah, Chief, I was just going to ask, because I did read about that, the breakdown of what's an ATV, all of that, and in there. Is there a way to, like, pre-mark these, have pre-register the vehicles they want to use so that they are identifiable very clearly?
I think we could tell them that you can have however many vehicles you want, and they can just put Chamber of Commerce unit, or on the sides, or maybe up on the windshield if it's got
To
a windshield.
identify them,
Yeah.
you think that would be okay with that? You prefer a gator, right, rather than
I do.
ATVs?
And I know they go with these type vehicles because a lot of times they get them donated by like Family Center and things like that. So,
Okay.
but a razor to me is where you crawl in and it's probably doesn't have much ability to haul stuff.
Yeah.
I think a gator allows more. And we will have gators up there. The city crew uses a gator, but they don't ever bring it up on the square. They park it on a side street, and any trash they bring to it, they bring it to off the square. My big concern is obviously you're going to have a lot of people up there. They know that the roads are blocked off. They're not expecting a moving vehicle through there. Just a safety concern.
Alderman Davidson.
I concur with the chief. I mean, I think razors are not going to be able to serve any purpose. ATVs are not going to be able to really serve any purpose other than movement. If they need gators to be able to move stuff, equipment, I totally concur with you on that, but I don't really think that there's any need for the razors, because that opens the door for other razors, other ATVs up there. I like what Alderman Zaring was talking about as far as identifiable of some kind, but I concur, I don't think we should be allowing that, especially if it's not allowed by ordinance. And I mean, we can waive that for this permit, but I'm not inclined to do so.
Thank you. Good discussion. Any other comments from any of the other aldermen? Alderman Turner.
So I know you said gators, gators/UTVs. I mean, they have the box bed.
Yeah.
I mean, classify the UTV as a gator type?
Yes.
Anything they can actually haul and be transported from.
Yeah, something that would have a box in the back that they could obviously haul equipment with.
Alderman, are you finished, Alderman?
Yeah.
Sorry, Alderman Zering.
I was just going to say, how would we move that to approval? Do we just put,
We would
I
just.
think we're good with the
gator type.
UTV and the gator, and that they're clearly identified as one of those.
I see Alderman Mills shaking his head, so I think he thinks that's a good idea too.
I second that.
Okay.
You want to put it
Driven by chamber only,
Yeah.
Yes.
or chamber staff.
Do we want to limit them to how many they can have?
Did they ask for a specific
Yeah, how
number?
many do they need?
I think they asked for 2.
For 2?
It's in Bing's email that he sent back to me, and I unfortunately did
Okay.
not print that off.
Okay.
I apologize.
I think so.
Go ahead, Alderman Mills.
Oop. I believe I read that in there also, 2 units, so I think 2 units sounds great.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So what I'm hearing from the board then is that we would, we the board would approve this event permit with the use of 2 UTVs or gators identified as chamber vehicles and operated by chamber staff or volunteers. Is that, did I state
That's
that
it.
correctly,
You said
board?
it perfectly, yep.
Okay. Then we'll just entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, the motion is from Alderman Zering with the second from Alderman Davidson that we approve the special use, we approve the event permit submitted by the chamber with the stipulation that only 2 Gator or UTV type vehicles will be allowed. They need to be identified as chamber vehicles and they need to be operated by chamber volunteers or staff. I'll take a roll call on that.
Alderman Zering,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Franklin,
Aye.
Alderman Mills,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Council
Thank
Bill
you, Chief.
60 is approved and becomes Resolution 2022-35. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. It's a rezoning of, is rezoning from A to C2 at 21400 East 275th Street. Ms. Stanton, is that you? Excellent. Thank you.
Christina Stanton, Community Development Director, and this is the Slumber Inn. They were annexed into the city March 15th, 2021, 4.63 acres. There is current language in Section 405.080 that basically any property that's annexed into the city is designated a agricultural district, and this property obviously was already commercially developed, so we're remedying this. It normally would have been zoned appropriately when it was annexed. Also want to note that the next staff meeting will have language to correct that section of the ordinance so that we won't have this situation come up again. Trying to think if I have anything else. Just staff recommends approval of the rezoning from District A, Agricultural District, to District C2, Service Business District.
Any questions for Ms. Stanton from the board? All right, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on this matter? Please step to the podium. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to Council Bill 61.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville approving a rezoning of approximately 4.63 acres of land from Agricultural A to Service Business District C2 on land located at 21400 East 275th Street in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
And again, I'll ask the board if you have any questions of Ms. Stanton on this. We'll be glad to get this cleaned up so we don't have to do this again. I'll entertain a motion on this ordinance.
I make a motion we should suspend the rules and move Council Bill 61 to a second reading.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Alderman Reese? Second. Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Alderman Turner with a second from Alderman Reese to suspend the rule on Council Bill 61 and advance it to its second reading. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Second reading.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville approving a rezoning of approximately 4.63 acres of land from Agricultural A to Service Business District C2 on land located at 21400 East 275th Street in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
A roll call, please.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Council Bill 61 is approved and becomes Ordinance 3599. Next on the agenda is a public hearing, special use permit for digital billboard. Ms. Stanton, we're keeping you busy tonight, aren't we?
I got a few on tonight. So some brief history here. The applicant claimed that this billboard's been around since about 1965. Staff has not been able to substantiate this. We did see that the first sign regulations appear to have been in 1978 timeframe. The state also said that the billboard was permitted as number 680 on September 5th, 1997. And they did note that it was possible that it may have been existing prior to that time and advertising on premise. So while the exact date that this billboard came into existence is unclear, what is evident is that a special use permit is required for the existing billboard to be upgraded to digital. And we have a number of criteria outlined within the staff report. I'm not going to go through everything, but we'll note that it does specify in there which criteria are being met, which ones are not. Also note that the advantage of the criteria are for new billboards, and this is existing structure. They'll be, going larger, but they'll be using the same structure that's there for the base. So we'll not be moving location. Would like to note that the items staff recommends approval with are listed in the staff report, have been updated to reflect the changes recommended from Planning and Zoning Commission. You'll note the two items pertaining to survey were asked to be waived since this is existing structure, existing location. But staff is recommending approval with the other conditions listed. The applicant provided the required certifications according with section 435.140.A.9.B, certification from a professional engineer registered in the state of Missouri, that the soil and subsoil is capable of accepting the projected loads of the billboard, certification from a professional engineer registered in the state of Missouri as to the electrical portion of the billboard, certification from professional engineer registered in the state of Missouri as to the structural strength of the billboard. And then the last one on here is providing financial security as specified in section 435.140.A.9.B, which I think actually should be D. The applicant caught that we were talking about that in between P and Z and tonight, of the city's code of ordinances.
Questions for Ms. Stanton on this item?
Was there a recommendation on this?
The Alderman wants to know, was there a recommendation?
The recommendation was with approval for those conditions.
Is approved by
Well, if there are no further questions of the board, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that'd like to address the board about this matter, please step to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, all. Hi, I'm Cynthia Warner, and I am the one asking for the permit. I'm just here to answer any questions if the board has any for me.
Questions for Ms. Warner? Doesn't look like there are any questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I sit down or I'll
You
stay?
can.
Okay,
You can sit
thank
down. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to Council Bill 62.
Council Bill 62, an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville approving a special use permit to upgrade an existing billboard to digital on land located west of I-49 and east of the South Gardens subdivision in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
And I'll check once more. Board, are there any questions? Go ahead, Alderman Turner.
Is it going to be a LED, I assume, lighting? I mean, is it one of them super bright ones like up at Belton? Do you know? I mean,
No, step to the podium. We just have an alderman attending remotely, and I want to be able to have him hear your answer. So,
yeah.
the question asked by the alderman was, is this going to be LED lights?
That's what is my understanding of a digital billboard, is they're made up of all these little components, which are LED lights.
Right.
But we have not purchased anything yet because we're waiting to get all of our paper and our
All your
everything
ducks in a row.
approved. So it'll be your standard. We've looked at, where Dave's truck wash is, and they put up a digital sign there outside of their
Okay.
truck wash. It's going to be very similar to
Okay.
that.
I didn't know if it'd be one of them super bright ones like on your way up north,
I guess I have to say I haven't seen those and haven't noticed that they're super bright.
Transwest there in Belton. I mean, it's blinding sometimes, but I just,
It's not our intent to make them blinding.
yeah. Okay.
Other questions from anybody on the board? Alderman Mills, I'm looking at you. Anything from you?
No, just I guess if we do have a lighting issue, I hope you just request if the city says to tone the lumens down. So I have experience with two of these, and one in Rolla, and the city council asked me if I would work with them on that, because you don't know reality until the thing is up. And believe me, and conversely, I offered if there was ever an emergency in the area, we can turn that thing up like the sun, and we can help the emergency services see the whole neighborhood.
And that has
So-
been a thought as well.
So that's just some consideration there. It's all a matter of personal how bright things are.
Yeah. And I'd
It's
just
good
like to
discussion,
say,
Alderman. Go ahead.
Mr. Mills, if you've had experience with that, I'd be happy to work with you. Yeah, it's not our intent to make it too bright or anything. And I don't even understand that yet, if you can turn them down or whatever you do, but I'm sure we can figure it out, right?
That's right.
I'm looking at you.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion on this ordinance.
I make a motion we suspend the rules and move Council Bill 62 to a second reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Turner with a second from Alderman Zaring to suspend the rule on Council Bill 62 and advance it to a second reading. A roll call, please.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Second reading.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville approving a special use permit to upgrade an existing billboard to digital on land located west of I-49 and east of the South Garden subdivision in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Council Bill 42 is approved and becomes ordinance 3540. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for rezoning for Juniors Edition. Mrs. Stanton.
Thank you. This application had a lot of history behind it. They were before the Planning and Zoning Commission for Junior's Edition to create a 4-lot subdivision back August 19th of 2021. And that same minor plat was before the board September 7th of last year. In the minutes, it does clearly state that the intent at that time was for the property to be platted into 4 single-family lots. Then they came back to a number of Planning Commission meetings, December 2nd of 2021, as well as the March 17th, 2022 meeting, both times staff recommending denial for a number of reasons. They wanted to rezone from the R1B to the R2B, which was the request that's still forward. The Planning Commission recommended denial at our last meeting. So just trying to close the loop with this item. Key issues, like I said, is that it was reviewed against R1B for the subdivision, and it was noted to be for single family. The structures that are within that lot, they had mentioned at their Planning Commission meeting that a lot of those are rented, though those are single-family detached structures. The structures in the block south of them are all duplex. So staff had talked with the Planning Commission after that item to discuss bringing that back for city-initiated rezone to clean up the block south of them. But for their individual lot, it does not make sense to, or their 4 lots, to rezone that to R2B when every other structure there is single-family and can easily go back and forth between being rented or being a single-family owner-occupied structure.
Questions for Ms. Stanton?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Alderman Zaring?
On these 4, there's 4 of them, right? 4
Correct.
plots there. And if I'm understanding it right, it's not, the lots are not conducive to a what they're trying to zone it for, correct?
Correct. They do not meet the standards to rezone to that, so they would either need to do a variance, which would be self-imposed hardship, or they would have to replat it into just 2 lots. But again, then you would have R2B in between everything else that is R1B, and the existing structures there, like I said, while they may be rented out, are detached single-family housing structures.
And Zoning Commission has explained this to them 3 times?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further questions for Ms. Stanton? Thank you. At this time, I'll open a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board about this matter, please step to the podium. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to Council Bill 63.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville, Missouri, establishing Section 240.050G and 240.050H of the Harrisonville Municipal Code and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Arthur.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Back again. All right, so last meeting we discussed the trash container enclosures, which is what we're here to finalize tonight. Last meeting we did end up with a consensus, unanimous opinion of everybody that was taking part in it to move forward. The 2 items that we did nail down, the variables were, number 1 was a 2-year time frame program for compliance with the new ordinance, and the other was to go with the 30% valuation of market value based on the county assessor's yearly figures. For the trigger point for doing it earlier than 2 years, if someone applies for a building permit and the total amount of work equals 30% or more of that building only market value. So you basically have 2 trigger points. One is a basic 2-year time frame, and the other is if a building permit is issued for addition, alteration, any major remodel project, then you would also be looking at needing to enclose your commercial dumpster. The landscaping part of what we have talked about in the past, it was decided last meeting to forego the residential landscape code change and to do that during development timeframes and platting work and to work with the developers to do it. The two commercial landscape items were to require C2 zoning and CBD2 zoning to have some landscaping requirements. Tonight, I'm just here to talk with you about the Chapter 200 part, which is the dumpster screening. And Ms. Stanton will be handling the Chapter 400 part once that's finalized with planning and zoning, and that will include those two zoning districts having some landscape requirements. Everything similar to what we've talked about in the past meetings. For the 240-050, our previous actions, we started talking about all this October 18th of 21, so it's been almost a year. We came back last regular session, talked a little more about this and the incentive program, which is kind of tied in with this. So last meeting's regular session, you guys approved the incentive program, which includes a provision for these commercial dumpsters, enclosures, to maybe get a little grant help when they're doing them. That's kind of where we're at now. We have an ordinance prepared based on the consensus last time for your consideration and vote. Any questions?
Good job. Good job. Questions for Chris? You've done a good job. We're very well educated on this. Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion on this ordinance.
Make a motion to suspend the rule, take it to a second reading.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Dorhoff with a second from Alderman Zaring to suspend the rule on Council Bill 63 and advance it to its second reading. May I have a roll call?
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Second reading.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Harrisonville, Missouri, establishing Section 240.050G and 240.050H of the Harrisonville Municipal Code and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Roll call.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused.
Thank you. Council Bill 63 is approved and becomes Ordinance 3541. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the final item on the agenda is a public hearing for the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, MS4 permit. Good evening, Ted, City Engineer.
Mayor, members of the board, today concludes our required 30-day comment period for the new stormwater quality permit from the state of Missouri and the new stormwater management plan that is required as part of that permit. So with this conclusion, we were to have a public hearing or public comment period tonight. There is no resolution or ordinance, just a time for any questions that will become part of the record.
And no public comments came forward, is that correct? No, okay. Questions, concerns, comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board on this matter, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move on to Alderman and committee reports. Alderman Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to bring up one thing. Sorry for being absent last meeting. However, on Facebook this week, there was a very good post by Harrisonville Schools and by the Harrisonville Police Department regarding Officer King. Love that connection between our schools.
Yes.
That's been a big part of the school system in the city becoming, I think, better in this town. And so I wanted to commend, I didn't think about it. I asked my chief if he was going to be available tonight. Wish I'd have thought about it sooner because I'd like to have had him here, but to publicly thank Officer King for, the showing that he is doing from the SRO position. We really need that. Unfortunately, throughout the United States, we've got a lot of areas where they don't think they need law enforcement in schools for certain reasons, but obviously here in the Midwest, we still accept them, want them, need them. And so I just wanted to commend Officer King for his actions and doing what he did there at the schools. That's all I have.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I think the board would echo those same words of appreciation, and we would ask Chief if you would share, please, with Officer King our comments. Thank you. Alderman Turner.
Nothing.
Okay. Alderman Mills.
Yes, I want to report on the Highway 71 and 291 Partners in Progress Transportation Development District. Long name. I call it the 291 TDD. We met last week. Back in 2008, when we had then City Administrator Diana Wright, and she figured out what the Missouri legislature had done, the property owners on 291 banded together and formed this legal TDD in 2009. I'm giving you a little history. The forward thinking of those property owners and the faith they put in the board of directors has been a windfall to this community. At least that's my opinion. We have a diverging diamond with 2 new bridges, new 291 roadway, better access to Rock Haven Road, Commercial Street, and all the businesses in that corridor. With the increased business that this community saw in the last 2+ years with the pandemic, and you've seen the sales tax numbers, I don't know how we would have handled the traffic without these improvements. Now, once again, we've got a city administrator that's bringing people together. Brad is bringing together the Welburn family and Gallant property owners to donate land for a major development project here in Harrisonville, along with a future vision for an expanded North Park sports and activity facility. New roads would connect North Commercial Street and Highway 291 to Jefferson Parkway near the community center. The TDD board last week voted to ask the property owners of the TDD to approve extending the current 1-cent sales tax to July 1, 2058, and taking on this new road project. If the property owners continue to support the TDD board in this new project, the windfall and benefit to the community will outweigh what we've already done. This is really big, ladies and gentlemen. It's what I think is the largest economic development opportunity we've had in years. With the passage of this project, the work will have just started. Passage is the first step. Nothing else in this vision can happen without the road infrastructure. Next, we've got to get this Board of Aldermen, the Park Board, the soccer field folks, grant writers, and any other organizations associated with current North Park operations together and on board on this deal. The vote is going to take place before the end of the year, and I'm anticipating a positive vote, so stay tuned for a lot of information to come down the line. So I think it was a great step forward last week for that TDD board. That's all I got, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alderman. I want to say two things. First of all, the vote of the TDD board was a unanimous vote to move forward with the project. And then secondly, I want to commend you, Alderman Mills, for the leadership and the vision that you have in fulfilling what our residents have asked for, which is an enhanced sports complex at the community center. You're right, this is the largest economic development project that we've entertained for years, and I know this board is dedicated to doing two things, to serving the citizens and to growing the community. So I just want to thank you for the leadership and the vision that you demonstrated in getting this ball rolling for us. Thank you. Alderman Zaring.
Yes, I'd just like to echo that. Thank you, Alderman Mills, for keeping us updated on that, definitely, and keeping us smart on it. Just a quick thing, it seems like since the last board meeting, I have seen, I mean, it's pretty exciting that the city's active. I mean, there's a lot going on, and I've seen everything from codes all the way to the police department. You got water, you got parks and recs, you got the staff here at the city hall it seems like I've been involved with something, needed something, and gotten assistance on that there. So just want to thank everybody. It seems like it's a really busy time of year, and it is exciting. You see a lot of things that are happening in our city. So,
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Franklin.
Yes, I had the opportunity to go a week ago this last Thursday. Third Thursday of each month is Ladies' Night on the square. And it was certainly nice to sit there and go up there and see all four corners. We had the coffee shop going, Artisans Corner, Birdie's headquarters was packed. But it was just nice to see everybody was out and about and walking around and taking advantage of the nice weather and just the fact that all the shops were open and everybody was taking advantage of it. So I thought it was great. This weekend is going to be our final Junk in the Trunk for Love the Harrisonville Square. It will be in the afternoon from 4 to 7. And, of course, as always, the farmers market is from 8 to 12. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Alderman Reese.
Yes. About the time you think you kind of know everything that's going on in Harrisonville, but you don't really know all the details, you find that you really don't know everything that's going on in Harrisonville. And I've been asked to serve on Harrisonville Area Chamber of Commerce Tourism Committee. And it's been meeting, it'll be about 4 months, 5 months now. And there's a group of citizens that are working to develop tourism within the city. And it's absolutely fascinating to sit and listen to all the ideas that are coming out. And one of the things that was said today that I thought was really interesting, and Obi's on this committee as well, and I think he may even be the head of it, I'm not sure. I kind of get confused. There's so many important people in there besides. Anyway, they said in order to bring people to Harrisonville, there has to be a reason. They called it a niche. And they said, for example, if you're going to Hannibal, you know about Tom Sawyer. If you're going to Branson, you know about all the tourism there. If you're going to, is it Weston that has the tobacco and alcohol, whiskey place? Anyway, normally there's something that draws you to that. And I said, in my idiocy, what kind of a niche does Harrisonville have? And within seconds, I'm hearing about the niches in Harrisonville. and when you get in and you listen to everybody and all the things that are going on in Harrisonville, the strengths that we have, it's fascinating. And I would encourage people to come and sit on that committee, if not to serve on it, just to listen to it. Because we've heard about, Obi, help me out here, some of the things that they talked about today.
We talk about different types of tourism, agriculture, economic development.
Antiques.
Yeah, and
food. We talked about different kinds of tours that you could offer people. Right. And the tours were phenomenal. There's tours about agriculture, about environmental things that go on in Harrisonville, about architecture, about the history, it just went on and on and on. And so I guess just basically, having grown up in Harrisonville, I was 9 years old when we moved here, about 20 years ago, and long time ago. And I have, it's just, that's where we grew up. We don't think about all the things that are there. And so I guess my message tonight is think about it. It's a pretty cool place to be.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm really pleased that you're serving on that committee. And I would mention this to the board. Mr. Ratliff and I had a visit a few days ago from Sherry Gallick, who is the assumed new representative for State District 62. Rural Harrisonville is in her district, and she came by to visit with us just to mention that she wants to be an advocate for us, and she wanted to introduce herself to us. We talked with her, and we will also talk with Representative Hafner, because Mike Hafner is now our representative for District 55 in Harrisonville. And one of the things that we talked with Ms. Gallick about was our interest in having a hotel guest tax issue brought before the legislature. We did that a couple years ago. We were unsuccessful with Representative Sander, but you always keep going back until you get what you want. So it's our intent to make that one of our legislative priorities for this next legislative session, that we are able to put the proposal for a guest hotel tax on the ballot, allowing people in Harrisonville to vote in support of that, with those funds being dedicated toward tourism in Harrisonville. So I just wanted to tag on to what Alderwoman Reese said about tourism and the importance and the opportunities that it presents to us. So again, thank you, Alderwoman, for serving on that committee. And Obie Carl is in the audience. Thank you for providing leadership to that. Alderman Dorhoff.
Nothing this evening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, report from Mr. Ratliff.
Yes, ma'am. Remember the fall citywide cleanup is September the 17th at the GFL facility. There will be a City Lake in the park grand ribbon cutting scheduled for Monday, September the 19th, beginning at 5 o'clock. So that'll be 5 o'clock before your 6 o'clock meeting coming up. Brush drop-off is on the 24th, and then VOA retreat the 28th of this month, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. Then there's been a lot of different things swirling around. As you remember, at the last meeting, I told you about the new system and the business license, that there's been some hiccups with some of the software, and the staff have done well working through that and working with people. Unfortunately, there are people that put on social media not all of the information, and so I'm telling you as the board, so the ones you've been seeing here lately discuss things about the business licenses and getting them on the board came to our staff without a sales tax number that you get from the state and or a no tax owed letter from the state. The city of Harrisonville, like all the rest of the cities in Missouri, cannot issue business license unless the state has given that person a sales tax number and they produce that they don't have any outstanding taxes owed. If we tell them no, it's not because we are just saying no. The state of Missouri tells us we say no, and if we don't say no and we issue them anyway, guess who they're going to come knocking on the door on making sure that those back taxes are paid. So I just want to make sure that you all realize that, and that some of these things that you see out on social media, and if they want to post them on social media to the public, I'll talk about it publicly if they want to go there, and we'll discuss it openly. But that is the truth of that. Every one of them that have come to my attention, I've gotten with Jeremy. We get to the staff and we find out there's information that was not given and to the staff, and in some cases, unfortunately, they met with our staff 2 weeks before the deadline. Staff told them what they needed to do and they still didn't. And so this is not, as you all recall, you simplified a lot of this even with the business license as well as the liquor licenses and making it easier and more transferable in the same way as the state. But even with those, we're still working with people to try to do that. And if someone has any hiccups or if there's any problems, that our staff have been very good at working with people and working them through that system. And then the Muddy Creek Regional Detention Stormwater Mitigation Project, I call it the Muddy Creek Retention down there. They like the longer name. The Dirks contractor continues moving dirt on the job site. The contractor has started the construction of the 48-inch outfall wall support structure. And the land bridge is nearly complete. And so it is complete now. It is operational. So you'll be getting another ribbon cutting here in a few weeks for that one that's coming up. The South Service Area Sanitary Project, there's continued discussions with staff, even pre-ordering some of the material that may be needed. As you all know, there's a supply chain issue. I don't know if anyone notices that. And so staff are concerned about that, working with engineers on what needs to be done on that to keep that on schedule. Staff is also applying for a cost share project on the South Street Missouri Highway 2 bridge over a Muddy Creek tributary project. As you all recall, we would have to come up a little over $500,000 for the match for that. If we get the cost share, then that would knock it down to around $198,000 for that project. So we're going to continue to push forward and try to get as many grants as we can, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on down here. Royal Street extension with the TDD, Alderman Mills pointed out with that project, and I do thank him. He's the chair of that TDD group, and it's been very helpful with me herding my cats and trying to get all of that moving forward. And also Mr. Wilburn and other property owners that have been very cooperative in working on that project. This project, and I am planning on bringing a work session where you all can look at a lot of this as we keep you all in the loop, because in the end you're going to have to approve it. To get to this place it is a trajectory changer for the city of Harrisonville. You're talking about bringing thousands of people in our community every weekend, and so it's a great opportunity. And I don't think there's anything better than the private, public, and landowners all working together to get a project done. It's a true community effort when those things are working all together. Lake Harrisonville intake structure, 100% of the plan specifications have been submitted to the engineer. Advertising date for September 13th, and plan to take bids on October the 4th. The City Lake and Dam Spillway Rehab Project, for that grand opening, they're currently going through a punch item list with staff to get that completed this month as well. Airport sign and detail logo, thanking Daniel and his creativeness for the airport sign. I told Carl's his looked like an engineer drew it, and so we went with someone a little bit more artsy. He got a better eye for it or something like that. I'm not good at it. Daniel's a whole lot better at it. Then the SEMA and FEMA are continue to talk with staff on those buyout properties. That's always a good sign if they keep asking us questions. And the more they keep asking questions, the more they keep interfacing with us, the better opportunity we hope for in the project. If they're not talking to you, it's not a good thing. The chief and I, as well as Lieutenant Harris, met with a group that is going to be creating themselves over these next few months called HAS Friends. HAS stands for Harrisonville Animal Shelter, and they want to do fundraising for the animal shelter, for adoptions, to increase adoptions, for equipment, for supplies, and those kind of things. I want to also tackle a misnomer is you all know you have a budget for the animal shelter. We have money in the budget for dog food and all the things that are needed for that, yes. But there is a very active group of people in our community that love to donate dog food or supplies or toys and those kind of things to the community. So a lot of times when you see that going out, and we've been working on the wordsmith of that, it's because those people want to know when we're getting low on those kind of donated supplies. But we have some wonderful givers in Harrisonville for that animal shelter, and this group that's coming together is wanting to accessorize that and do more things down there at the animal shelter. Building permits valuation, thus far we've had $32.2 million worth of that valuation to this point. Last year was 31.9 for the whole year. So you're seeing a continued increasement of investment in our community, which is always a great thing. And then lastly, I want to compliment Jim Clark. We did a virtual site visit with Missouri Partnership and Global Location Strategies, Site Selection Consultants. And it was a first of its kind. Harrisonville was first in the chute, and they actually asked Jim for all of our stuff to present to even other people that are doing these type of things, because Jim had everything so well organized for that virtual visit and had all of the playmakers. We had everybody from the gas company to the electric companies to the water districts all at the same table talking and answering questions, and it was about a 2-hour discussion with that group. And so I want to commend Jim for that as well, because having those discussions about these properties with these groups is what puts Harrisonville on the map of dealing with a lot of these locators. And then one of the things that, as you all know, the federal government has been issuing out a lot of different monies and grants. It's like Christmas every day. And we are wanting to always make sure we're taking advantage for our residents. If it's going to be out there, I'd rather it come to Harrisonville than New York City or San Francisco. And thus far, in Harrisonville, and this is not the end of it, we got more we're applying for. We've applied for over $41 million worth of grants, and we've already received $7 million in those grants that are coming in on these projects. And so this is a great credit to our staff that are staying on top of that, and as well as you all that have allowed the additional staff in the finance department to help stay on top of that and to track that. And so, it's really what the governor said, and to the mayor and a lot of them in their meetings is, are the cities prepared to go after these funds that are out there? And Harrisonville has put ourselves in a very competitive position for those dollars. With that, Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ratliff, and thank you to staff for applying for those grants. That's phenomenal to have already received $7 million in grants. My comments, I just want to ask you please to put in your calendars, first of all, September 19th at 5 o'clock, the celebration at City Lake, the ribbon cutting, and the official grand opening of what a fantastic project that has been. I think so many times cities don't do a good enough job of celebrating their successes, and I think that the renovation of City Lake and the whole park is a huge success for Harrisonville, led by Parks Director Perkey and Administrator Ratliff, and I think we owe it to our residents to take some time to celebrate that. So please plan to join us. We'll meet there at 5 o'clock and then come here for our meeting. Then also on the 28th, as Brad said, will be our fall board retreat on the 28th at 6 o'clock here in this room. It'll be kind of a recap for all the things that we've done and been through since we had our spring retreat. There's no one here from the media this evening. Are there any other comments from anybody on the board? If not, Alderman Davidson, in the absence of Alderman Milner, you're going to do her job. Go for it.
It's going to be hard to fill. Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, subsection 3, hiring, firing, discipline, or promotion of employee, and pursuant to RSMO 610.021, subsection 2, leasing, purchase, of sale of real estate.
Thank you. I'll have a roll call, please.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I have a second from Alderman Zaring. And now I'll take that roll call.
Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Zaring.
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Franklin.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Mills.
Aye.
Alderman Milner is excused. Mayor Bowman.
Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned to executive